Hello and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you happen to be. This is Tim from ETOA. Welcome to a member-only webinar, which is focusing on the product from our new partner, BehaviorSMART. So Gergana and Milena are the double act you can see on the screen. We're also joined by the Chief Sustainability Officer for the Travel Corporation, Shannon, is with us, joining us from Gergana today, I believe. So she'll bring perspectives from the private sector, because today is really about how the insights that have been gleaned from behavioral psychology can influence how we present options to our clients, but it's also going to have an influence on how we can develop product which has those options in as well. BehaviorSMART have been working with the supply chain and with destinations for some time, but only this autumn launched the part of their platform that addresses tour operators. So we're very pleased to have an opportunity for them to walk through what they've put together for tour operators. And once we've done all that, we'll have a little bit of a conversation amongst us in order to explore how this is going to work in practice. There are various questions that have been submitted in advance, which we can look at later. But I think with that, I am going to ask Gergana and Milena to start, and Shannon, you'll be watching the presentation along with me, and then we'll get involved in the conversation later. Thank you. Over to you, Milena and Gergana.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's really a great pleasure, and I hope that you can see us well. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone, and I hope that we'll have
I'm sorry, I'm just going to interrupt. The sound quality is poor. I'm sorry, from my perspective, I don't know if it's me, the sound quality is poor. Is it poor for you as well, Shannon? Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe if video was off, it might help, unfortunately.
We'll be speaking about how we can simplify
I'll email Gergana.
Sustainability and amplify results.
Sorry, Gergana, Milena, I'm afraid the quality of the signal we're getting from you is very bad. I don't know whether the computer has to work too hard because there's two of you. Yeah, maybe if you turn.
Okay, can you hear us better now?
Yes, that's better. So maybe if you turn the camera off, the computer's doing less work, and we can just see the presentation to begin with, and then we'll sort of try again with. Okay, so apologies everyone. Welcome to the world of technology. I can see there's a hand up from Gail. I'll have a look at the message. So while we're just sort of resetting ourselves from a tech perspective, I'll just, for those of you who've not had a look before, there is a chat function in the bottom of the screen if you're not used to using this. And we'll see if we can be joined shortly by Milena and Gergana.
Can you hear us now?
Okay. Yes, we can hear you. So if you'd like to wind back to the beginning of the presentation, over back to you. Thank you.
All right. Just a second. Okay, can you see this now, the first slide?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, second try. So thank you again for joining. We very much rely on technology. Sometimes we need to be relying on our own personal connections, and that's why travel is very important, to have personal connections. But this time, for the purpose of this webinar, we will focus on using the technology. I am Gergana, and I am the CEO of BehaviorSMART. and today we will be talking about why psychology matters and how we can be tackling some of the challenges in our industry. Sustainability is, of course, top of mind to many of us. It is becoming more and more pressure. And the good news today is that we have very easy to follow solutions that don't not only bring solution in sustainability, but also help us with our bottom line. And we will speak about our digital solution, the beSMART platform, which we mentioned, and we have some special member rates and opportunities for you to benefit from it. So a warm welcome to the ETOA community. This is me with the blue. Sorry for the connection. You can't see me, but you can imagine now who we are with Milena. We are the founders of BehaviorSMART. And just a little bit about me before I pass to Milena to speak about the scientific background of our company. I have graduated the George Washington University's School of Business, focused on sustainable tourism, and my entire experience has been focused on working with the travel trade. And with this, I am complementing Milena's experience in the travel industry, but also bringing some scientific knowledge, and I'm helping bring this to the industry. Now to Milena, and then more for me in a little bit.
Thank you, Gergana. Hello from me. I am the second founder. I mentioned the scientific brain. As you understand, we really have formed a unique blend of knowledge from behavioral science, travel, sustainability in order to use change in order to achieve goals. We are very proud to share that 2024 was the year when we achieved our B Corp certification, and really strive to use science-driven insights and translate them into business practices that both make market sense but also drive impact. So, starting with the background, everything that we'll talk about later, and in general, our behavior-smart thinking, which we'll promote and talk more about, is really inspired by the growing body of knowledge which has been accumulated by behavioral science in the last 2 to 3 decades. And I'm not going to go into the theory, but we'll just illustrate how this has made a difference to our understanding of how people make decisions and how they engage in actions. So in the past, we have been working with assumptions mainly through the application of economic modeling, where decision-making has been oversimplified in order to make large-scale economic models work better and easier. And those assumptions have been that we as decision makers across different situations are 100% rational, that every time we are faced with a decision, we make an effort to find all the relevant information that is available to allow us to compare the different options we have in front of us. We analyze that information and then we arrive at the choice that seems to be the most beneficial. This involved also the assumption that we are very solid when it came to predicting how things will develop in the future. And also we are able to compute uncertainties with relative level of specificity. Now, with the advance of behavioral science and new knowledge that behavioral economics and other behavior sciences have advanced, we know that this is actually not so, and that in many ways we deviate from perfect rationality models. In many cases, we actually make a mindful decision to go with decision shortcuts, which allow us to go around the need to compare options and to look for information. Not only so, we actually very often ignore information, even if it's right in front of our eyes. Something that I know many of you can relate to when you think about the information that you provide your travelers with, and then it never gets processed. We are highly influenced by the immediate moment, the immediate context, and actually imagining the future and dealing with complexities and vague ideas is something that we are really not good at. Now, in order to avoid going further into the theory, I will use a couple of examples that illustrate what this means in very practical terms and what these different assumptions about how we make decisions translate to in everyday living. So imagine that you are preparing yourself to go on a camping trip this upcoming weekend. You are in need of a new coffee maker, and you like the one that you see here. You are in an outdoors gear store. You take it to the cashier's desk, and the person behind the desk tells you that if you're willing to invest about 10 minutes of your time, there's another store down the street that carries the same coffee maker for 10 euro less, or for $10 less. If you're like the majority of buyers in this situation, you will leave the coffee maker, invest 10 minutes of your time, and go to the other one to save the $10. Now, if the similar situation repeats with a different product, a backpack, like the one that you see here at the price that you see here, and the same situation happens, you take it to the cashier's desk of the outdoor gear store, and again, the person behind it tells you that if you're willing to walk 10 minutes, there's another store that carries the same product for $10 less. If you're like the majority of buyers in this situation, you will forego this opportunity and actually go ahead and pay the higher price. Now, why is this interesting? Because it actually illustrates that in one and the same situation, one and the same person can treat one and the same amount differently. And in the first situation, we take action and make effort to save and benefit from the saving opportunity and save $10. In the second one, we actually decide to mindfully skip that opportunity. So this is an illustration of how we can deviate from what would be the rational choice, which would mean that we would always consistently treat one and the same amount of money the same way, depending on the immediate context. In this case, the fact that we compare the $10 to the starting amount, which is the price of the product that we are dealing with. One more example, many of us go to events, and during breaks, obviously, there's coffee. And imagine that you have 3 cup sizes to choose from. And if you're like the majority of event goers, you will go with the middle option, which feels safest. It's not too small, not too large. Now imagine that the vendor on the second day of the conference changes the available cup sizes. And what used to be the middle is now the smallest. What used to be the largest is now the middle. And again, the majority will go for the middle option, regardless of the fact that this was the large size the day before. So what you see here is that if a decision such as how much caffeine to have on that day does not depend on our rational decision of how much is good for our specific body, how much coffee we've already had on that day. It's actually highly driven by the way that the choice is presented and by the design of the choice set that we're faced with. So these 2 examples illustrate how very often we are much more driven by the immediate context or the decision situation in which we are making the choice, rather than our individual specifics. And this really sums up one of the main findings or advances in our understanding of decision making, that context is really, really powerful, and that it can be the source of influence much more about driving the decision outcome rather than the individual specifics. So one and the same person can end up making very different decisions depending on the context they're placed in, the choices, the design of the choice situation, the people that are around them, and the decisions of these people. The second thing that sums up the advance of our understanding of decision making is that decisions are channeled through two different systems of our brain. We do have a system, our slow thinking system, that adheres to the expected rational pattern of making choices. It takes time, it really compares options, and it really looks for what seems to be the most beneficial option. But we also have a fast thinking system one, which really is tempted to find the quickest shortcut to arrive at the choice, to go around the need to compare different options, to look for data, and so on. So this is the system that's highly driven by context, that's almost childlike impatient, and that can be influenced by the choices of others as well as the decision-making situation. So in that sense, one of the key conclusions that we can draw is that how a choice situation is designed and what is the specific setup that we are facing when we are looking at making a decision can be extremely powerful and can really determine the outcome of the decision situation. So I'm not going to go into the details, but those of you who are following the developments or the challenges that Google is facing now in the US, and the legal procedures that have been launched, at the heart of the process is actually the fact that Google has made sure, as part of its market strategy, that its search engine is always the default option for partner devices. And the reason being is that behavioral science has offered enough knowledge for us to know that the fact that it's the default option actually most certainly ensures that the majority of customers will be the users of the product. So this is just an indication that we now have enough body of knowledge, both from science as well as the market, that proves the importance of considering choice design. Now, let's take that further and place it in the context of the travel industry, and really try to explain why we should be caring about all of this in the context of travel. The first reason is that I know many of you these days are hearing or exposed to discussions about the so-called intention action gap. And that's the difference between travelers' statements that they want to travel more responsibly, that does not really correspond to the rate of change in their actions and readiness to act on these intentions. This gap actually is explained by behavioral science. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we know from about behavior change and what explains its existence. But it is one of the big challenges that we're facing these days. And as we mentioned, We know now that there's two decision patterns that usually influence how we arrive at certain choices. In the context of travel, this is really valid to the extent that many of the decisions that end up producing undesired footprint, whether it's related to food waste or to increased carbon footprint, are actually system one decisions, which means that they are driven by the way that options are presented and currently designed in the in our industry. So what we have prepared based on this background information about behavioral science now is a set of questions that we most often get asked in order to, when we talk about these issues to tour operators and other service providers in the industry. So we've structured the next section of the content around these questions. And hopefully this will really make sure that we are sticking to the immediate questions that also come to your mind. So starting with, what should a tour operator know about human psychology? So we often use in our practice a concept called human realism. And this is really the first huge benefit of using knowledge about human behavior, that we can be very realistic in our understanding of how and why travelers would think about responsibility and how and why they would act on it. What we're learning is that how choice situations, when we include sustainability options, are designed really matters, and that by making sustainable choices appealing and easy, depending on the specificity of the decision, we can really significantly increase the likelihood that travelers will opt for responsible options, and that we can close the gap between intentions and actions. Now, when we talk about human, or in this case, traveler realism, what do we mean? There are 3 points that I will mention here that really sum up what we know from behavioral science that applies to travelers. The first is that the main engine of traveler behavior is the desire of an experience, a memorable experience, an enjoyable experience. So in that sense, there's never a realistic situation in which a traveler prioritizes sustainability over the experience. And once we are very realistic about that, and once we know that travelers will never sacrifice the experience in order to be responsible, we can realistically find effective ways to act on the need to drive more responsible behavior. The second thing that's important, again, that builds on what we talked about earlier, is that choices of travelers are very often driven by what is made easy by us and what seems to be the shiny, attractive, appealing option at the moment of the decision. And related to that, adjusting the design of choice situations by focusing awareness, by providing small incentives, by making one option easier or more appealing, can actually have dramatic impact on what choices will become the choice of the majority. So then the next logical question is, how does a tour operator influence choice points? So choice points are really every moment when the traveler is making a decision. These are our opportunities to really adjust or use behavior change tactics in order to steer the choice in one direction or another. So, for example, the moment a traveler is looking for things to do on a weekend at the destination they're visiting, perhaps as they're waiting for their official tour or itinerary to start on the next day, what spots they decide to visit on that day, that's a choice choice point. So we as behavior change Influencers would, for example, use the technique of making it very easy and very appealing for them to choose less visited spots by presenting them in very attractive and emotional descriptions, which increases and making it very easy for them to find them and go to them. So that is one example of how we could influence that choice point. Another example is every time that people are choosing what to have for dinner, for lunch, for breakfast, presenting local and seasonal dishes as irresistible and top of mind is another example. Or every time that a guest is thirsty and they're looking to satisfy their thirst, whether we have made an effort to make tap water or water that's not in single-use plastic bottle, easy to go for, we are influencing the likelihood that they will go for that. So here are some numbers from our practice using similar techniques. For example, this is coming from an accommodation complex in Slovenia, in the Bohinj region, where those of you who are familiar with the area know that it welcomes mostly active tourists. So we worked with an accommodation complex in order to support their desire to spread their guests a little bit more evenly and encourage them to visit less visited spots to avoid crowding around popular attractions. So providing a flyer with recommended places to visit with emphasis on less popular sites and describing them in very engaging ways made sure that over the summer, 100% of the guests staying at the complex would visit at least one of these spots. In Norway, again, in a camping complex, we helped the site address the fact that many people, confused by the more sophisticated waste collection, waste separation system in Norway, ended up throwing everything in the general waste, which meant that a staff member would have to sort it and reorganize it. So just by introducing a very simple visual guide, helping people understand what goes where, we were able to help them over the season reduce general waste by 38%, and then helping another active operator in Norway replace everything single-use with reusable alternatives, help them eliminate single-use plastics waste. So you can see that with very simple, easy, effortless, and investment-light changes, we are able to influence choice points and influence the outcome of those choice points. So these are individual choice points that we address, but what is the role that a tour operator supplier network can play? I'll give a couple of examples, and this is probably where I would also love Shannon's input as to the relevance, importance of this, and the extent to which this is something that, in her experience, tour operators face. So the examples that I gave, of course, address individual choice points, but the big challenge from a tour operator point of view or other travel businesses that have entire ecosystems of suppliers or partners is how can you really drive change by literally spreading or programming the entire supply ecosystem for desired behavior by influencing multiple choice points so that the entire experience, the entire traveler consumption pattern changes towards spending more on local food or moving or going for mobility options which are lower carbon. Our answer to that is that we need to be using such behavior change or choice design techniques at multiple multiple points across the entire ecosystem in order to really ensure that consistently we steer travelers towards the desired option in a way that really avoids fostering guilt-driven decision-making, and that encourages them to go for the decision in an easy, through ease and appeal. But Jenna, maybe here it would be really helpful to hear your thoughts on this, because I know that among operators, especially the ones with large supplier ecosystems, this is a topic that is often on the table.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm taking notes because I'm learning. But there's a couple of ways that I see that this being beneficial, not just for the supplier, but also for the guests. Of course, as a tour operator, we are the middleman, but also sort of top of the buying pattern in this situation, because we're the last stop towards the guest. So as a result, we have a lot of opportunity to influence the guest, which is exceptionally difficult. And then we have a need to influence the supply chain. So I'm trying to look at it, and I am looking at it in both respects. In terms of operating the guests, my thinking on that, or influencing, my thinking in that's really evolved, sort of a little bit. I tend to come at things a little bit black and white, which can help in some cases and really not be good in others. But when you effectively give them the choice, like we've tried to build in the sustainable option simply by changing the back of house, right? And the way in which we operate. Now that's worked relatively well to date, but now we're at this critical junction whereby we need more significant change throughout our suppliers and throughout the value chain. And so this is where I see this being really, really interesting. I'm going to flip-flop because you're giving me a lot of really, hopefully decent ideas. I couldn't agree more that this can't not be guilt-driven. People are on their vacation. Rightly or wrongly, they will leave sensibilities behind. And that is towards low waste, towards not drinking out of plastic water bottles, et cetera, because they don't want to think about it. And so, this is where you really start to see it, a little disappointed in some respects, but the need for us as operators and suppliers to change the way in which to make the more sustainable option easy. I think that when we last spoke, you had a lot of really great ideas about the way in which, because there's multiple sides of this and you will both explain it far greater than I will. But for me, it's the guests and there's their supply chain. And we talked a lot about the way in which this could influence the value chain. And you walked me through your platform in a way that was really useful for me. So I'm going to give it back to you a little bit to talk about, the way you can do that from a supply chain perspective. Because from my value chain, I'm asking big things. I'm asking to switch to HVO. And that brings fears about insurance, though we assure you it works and we can give you the list of vehicles it works in from a coach perspective. We're asking to, and we've been asking for ages, ditch single-use plastics. And in some cases it's not possible, though there's always a solution for water. There just is. It's just not an easy solution. And I think there's a lot of power for the operator to carry the burden of it taking a bit of work and make it easy for the guest. So yeah, you had a lot of really wonderful ideas about how this could be applied to the value chain. And I'd love for you to articulate it better. You both.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. The logic of what we promote is that as many as we can choice points that are under the control of us as service providers need to be designed in a way that encourages the more sustainable option. And in many cases, because these are actually automated decisions, they do not cost anything in terms of satisfaction or pleasure on the side of traveler. So in that sense, it's a very easy switch. And because many of these adjustments are actually fairly easy to execute, they are almost no-brainer. Now, that's not to say that everything is like that. Obviously, many of the full transformations that we need to be making will require new infrastructure, new vehicles, more complex and expensive solutions. But there's so much that we can optimize by these touch-ups on decision points that, yeah.
Yeah, well, I just want to add to that something you said a moment ago, I couldn't agree more with. So when you say they're not costing the guest, in fact, I think that they quite subtly enhance the guest behavior. If you take a kitchen, for example, and you get those, it's always feels so, with respect to anyone on the call using these, it feels quite cheap when you've got the little peanut butter in the disposable packet, right? As opposed to anything else that you can put on the kitchen table. Disposable is quickly, it depends on the demographic, akin to cheap. And I think that that's one of the most obvious low-hanging fruit of things that you can provide from an experience perspective that meets the needs of sustainability and enhances the travel experience. It's the most simplest I can think of. And I think there's a lot of other options as well. That, you know, because I'm ensconced in biofuel. In Italy, for example, at the minute, it's on par cost-wise, almost 100%, not 90, not 100%. It's a 1-to-1 drop in fuel, yet there's a fear of using it. It's obviously always advise you check with your coach manufacturer, but most coaches after a particular year, in many cases that's 2023, but again, always to check, it's a 1-to-1 fuel, it's a drop-in. And when you make that message to your buyer, whomever it is, be it direct to consumer or via the travel trade distribution network, they're excited. So it enhances the proposition by just doing a little due diligence.
Yeah. We are also finding, to be honest, because actually, even though travelers do not want to act on sustainability, but they actually understand the importance of it. What we are finding from our field work and some of the cases that we shared is that companies that execute these choice points adjustments and make it easy for people to go for the responsible alternatives, that translates to increase in satisfaction. So we've had some of these companies also report that they see on TripAdvisor or in their satisfaction forms direct statements that refer to the fact that it was very easy for them to sort the waste in the right way, or that they actually enjoyed being able to go and visit places which were off the hot lists, but actually ended up being very exciting experiences.
Yeah.
There's no chance you have data that correlates between these initiatives and repeat rate, do you? That would be really interesting.
We are actually right now, we are still waiting for the data from these from the projects that these examples come from, to be able to analyze it and find out. But we are also talking to partners and researchers in order to execute a full-scale study that actually explores that, because in theory, in science, there's sufficient justification to expect that making sustainability easy and attractive should translate to increase in satisfaction ratings. In the work that we are doing, we are seeing that, but it's still not at the scientific level of confirming that. So we are working towards that.
And I think you're right. Sorry, I think you're right, Shannon. Some longitudinal analysis on this to demonstrate that this works, therefore it's worth investing in and doubling down. I'm just doing my job as watching the clock a little bit.
Yep.
I know
Tim.
that we're just about to introduce the platform itself, and
Yes.
I just want to make sure that the just thinking about operators listening who are thinking, okay, application to me in terms of supporting decisions that the clients are making in destination. I think that's sort of super clear. I think if there's any time to reflect on how we're presenting choices before people leave. So, and I was, because it's sort of fairly well accepted that people like having a choice rather than just being told, yeah, you've got no choice, you're just having the good option. And that might feel too controlling and bossy. So it's about nudging and what have you. But I was just thinking about the ambition to spread tourism flows and dispersal. And if options were presented as, you could almost use images, which here's a busy, crowded looking image, and here's a less busy, crowded looking image. Is that too manipulative, too obvious that people tend to sort of pick the thing which has got the more attractive looking image as opposed if they don't like crowds? Yeah, exactly. So I think to me, this has got a design implication on how we're sort of presenting excursions, how platform design works. If you want people to go to the long tail of product rather than the sort of most famous, obvious stuff. So any reflections?
No one shows a crowded Trevi fountain, do they?
Correct. But if you did, they probably would not pick that option, was my thought. So, and they might be more likely to pick the walking tour of Fellini's Rome that goes somewhere else. So I think, are there insights here which can help the marketing departments steer people toward the path less traveled? That's just one thought, but you've got a big platform to introduce. We've got about 18 minutes. Back to you.
Absolutely. And actually, I'm going to pass over to Gergana to introduce the platform. But the idea of the platform is to be a digital companion with many, many such actions, as you say, small change, smart, we like to call them, change tactics that help you do precisely that, from encouraging people to buy more local to going to less visited attractions. So Gergana, do you want to share more?
Yes, and just to transition from what you were just discussing, it's very important. It's not only the communication, but it's smart communication. Yesterday, we had a conversation with a big UK operator discussing how they were promoting a meat-free dinner and how actually this negatively impacted the experience because it was the fear of missing out that actually was the reflection from the traveler. But when they actually presented the same experience as introducing local products, actually it was an increase of the experience of the travelers. So it's really it needs to be a smart and careful selection of wording to be the right communication. So the beSMART platform is, I will stop the video just in case, again, the connection is disrupted, because now the whole love needs to go and attention to the beSMART platform, which we just released. And there, as Milena mentioned, it gives us an opportunity at the same time to be working with multiple businesses. And this is where it comes very handy, because if we want to enable our suppliers at the same time to be working on reducing plastics and to be promoting more local food, this can happen at the same time. And you, as the super admin, as the super user, you can monitor the progress of your suppliers. And also, once we have results from all your suppliers, you have access to that. So it's very easy to use. It is at a, we believe, very attractive price. This is what we hear. And it brings really fantastic real results. We've been working, although we just released it a month ago, actually it's been in the works for 2 years because it comes as an outcome of multiple pilot testing of the product with businesses, with destinations, so that we are sure that what we are working on as a solution, as a digital solution, it's really working and impactful. So these were some of the partners we've been working with in the past couple of years. How the platform is structured, we have content for the different business types. So let's say you're a tour operator, whether you're an outbound operator, you select this, then you will be presented different topics: local food, promotion of local food, or balancing tourist flow, and so on. You select this, and then you are presented within the topic with 6-7 different actions you can follow. These actions have introduced small changes, micro changes that you can apply as you go through the platform, and I'll show them in a second. Once you go through all the actions, you receive a badge of completion. And these are the topics that I just mentioned, how it looks like when you click through the different business types. Once you have purchased content topics, you go to My Missions, and this is what you get. You have one video which is 7 to 10 minutes long. This gives you the basics of human psychology, or traveler psychology, actually, which helps you understand how you have the power of influencing the traveler's choice. And then once you have that understanding, you also understand why we're presenting these actions that you can see right now. Showcase seasonal options, describe as irresistible, recommend restaurants, and so on. Now here, what I want to highlight is 2 specific actions that are in every topic, and these are how to communicate your efforts and how you can measure the success. We mentioned that some approaches work better than others. The only way we know is through measuring. So we are helping you set the baseline, and after that, how you can start measuring the change. So make most of these. I mentioned we mentioned also the badge of completion. So this is how under your profile you can access the badge, and you also have a place where you can access your notes while you've been going through the content. And the badge is presented with your name, with your company name, and when you have completed the action. This is the actual action, how it looks like, small bites of information, which present you with very digestible information, first introducing how you can influence the traveler's choice, how you have the power, and after that, giving you very specific, as I mentioned before, micro actions, micro changes, micro tips. So the idea is that as you go through each tip, you actually apply these recommended changes. And because we know that you're busy with your daily work, your suppliers are even more, like probably 2-3 people managing everything in their business, it's very difficult to really, let's say, if we need to design or put a description, how do we do it? We're providing you the templates. Download the template. We also Canva resources that are ready to use. We're giving you prompts for using ChatGPT so that it can help you with the attractive descriptions, with the storytelling approach of telling the place of the story, so that it's really, really helpful to you and to your suppliers. I mentioned a little bit earlier also the dashboard. So these are the dashboards where you can follow who is at what stage of completing the content. And what I wanted to also mention is that completing one topic takes about 3 to 5 hours. So this means that you dedicate 5 hours and you have activated change on promoting more local food, or whatever else would be your focus. If you want to focus on reducing pressure on hotspots or promoting low footprint experiences, 5 hours of your time and you have unlocked that opportunity, and you can start tracking that change. With this, I, of course, need to highlight the fact that being a partner of ETOA, we have special price for ETOA members when it comes to individual purchases. So these are the special codes. They're available through the, once you log in your profiles, team, you probably can direct better where they can find them. Of course, anytime you reach out to us and let us know you're an ETOA member, we can also provide them so that it can be helpful. So make most of this. And at the same time, we also have special packages if you want to empower your supply network. And this is something recognizing now that we could have put this slide also on here. We have these special packages for empowering your supply chain. And one is includes all the costs for activating your supply network. And the other one, actually, because we've heard from all these conversations that we had with the travel trade, that not everyone wants to cover the costs of their suppliers. And actually, they feel that it's fair that their suppliers also have some skin in the game. So we have this also subsidized approach for enabling your supply network. So let us know if you're interested. We'll be happy to share these as well. A couple of testimonials from some of our clients and partners, specifically Escape Travel. We have, they've used it on individual level, but also now are working with a group of accommodations along Via Francigena Trail so that they can become more sustainable for any traveler. Another example comes from another partner, also B Corp, with whom we've worked this summer. And also, as they highlighted, from reducing waste to optimizing resources, it has been tremendously helpful and beneficial to their business. Before we actually open for questions, I would like to pass back to Milena to share this fantastic quote by Dana Reilly, who is a true inspiration for our entire team.
Thank you. So this quote really sums up the idea of being smart about human psychology and understanding what are the principles and the limitations, if we want to frame them that way, that explain how people make decisions and how specifically travelers respond to sustainability. So if we adopt the same level of realism that we adopt when we think about physical limitations, this immediately empowers us to design a world, a business reality where we can address and make the most out of this knowledge. So hopefully we've inspired you and given you enough to motivate you to benefit from some of these smart thinking actions, because they really are ways to make the travel business a smarter business.
And being smart is what it's all about. As you just follow the news, the European Capital of Smart Tourism was announced last week. So we've got Torino and Benidorm in there. Thank you so much. Huge amount of content. And to reassure everyone watching, we will have a link to this presentation on the website where I've just put a link in the chat. So one of the questions we received beforehand was, how can those new to sustainability best collaborate with BehaviorSMART to start influencing travel? Well, I think an awful lot of the last 50 odd minutes has given you that. But I suppose, this is a question for Gergana, Milena, and Shannon. There's no shortage of, how can I put it? There's no shortage of agreement that we want tourism to be better. We want tourism to spread out. We don't want to seasonalize, diversify. So there's no real dispute among professionals about what good could look like. spreading the value of tourism throughout the community. That helps address anti-tourism sentiment, all those good things. Is this something, and Shannon, maybe you can start, this kind of thing needs management support, right? It's a kind of commitment at an organizational level that you need to try. It's not what we're trying to do, it's what are the tools available to affect change. Is this something that senior management needs to buy into, or is this someone, so thinking, the various sort of purchasing teams you work with, is this something that's going to get championed by people who are day-to-day in production, as well as people with more strategic roles like yours?
This, as in the wider this
Yeah.
of sustain, yeah, both, because the latter won't do anything until the former articulate what needs to happen. So my function, or my approach to sustainability, has always been business function. And by that, I mean, what can you do in product, in buying, in marketing? Because there's a great deal of people who wish to be involved. And then there's people who don't, but will get it done when you're specific. You can't keep it as this ethereal future state of more sustainable. You need to be tactical. I think that business models are really important and understated. And, there's a lot of different certifications, B Corps, non-B Corps, UN SDGs. All of these processes, if employed with rigor, have merit. There's no one single approach in my perspective. And I think that's really important to articulate, because given we're 70 to 80% small to medium-sized enterprises, not everyone has the resources that, say, I do, for instance. And that doesn't mean don't do it at all. And it doesn't mean, I can't do it in the same way that company XYZ does. It means you have to figure out a way that works for your business model and within your resources. So yeah, you absolutely need management steer. And then you need, I believe, tactics, and product and buying are critical. They're such critical functions, and they're always my number one and my go-to when it comes to implementing any goal or achieving a goal. But this is really interesting, because this is, what's presented in this articulates the way in which that power lays with how people move, not just what you give them. And so I think there's a lot of potential here that I haven't understood. And I also think it's a really, honestly, it's a great place to start if other elements are giving you a hard time. Moreover, it's a great way to prove business case if you're really struggling with the concept of business case. So, I see it as a really valuable tool from that perspective.
Yeah, I think that's what struck me as well. So I think for those sustainability champions out there who are really trying to advance the cause within an organization, I think, just listen to what Shannon said for the last minute. I think this is a really sort of convincing case. This is practical. And this is going to have demonstrable benefit you can actually see and check in. And then if that you get stuck in one place, you can make progress in another. And I think from an ETOA perspective, if I look at across the membership, so maybe a quarter of the membership are buying product around Europe, but something like 10% of our membership are destination management organizations. And I know, beSMART platform was sort of first adapted to support destinations in supporting their own ecosystem to offer the right kind of choices. And as Shannon articulated, because operators are in the middle, they're doing a lot of buying, and they've got a planning cycle which is very different from consumers. I'm going to be interested to see how this kind of thing can influence dialogue between operators and destinations as well, in order that the choices are available for the operator product designers to go, aha, this is something that we can offer and build in as an option. So I think this is going to be a catalyst for some really good creative conversations between operators and destinations in my utopian universe of how progress is going to happen. But we've pretty much at the top of the hour, and there's a huge amount of content delivered. Shannon, thank you so much for sharing your insight from how this kind of thing could work in practice and how the business case could be evaluated. I think that's super valuable for any tools that we're seeking to offer members. Gergana, Milena, as ever, thank you so much for a very engaging presentation. It will be shared on our website. Thank you to all of you for listening along. I'm sure this conversation will continue. But for now, thank you very much. Till next time.
And you.
Thank you very much. And want to mention that actually, because you mentioned destinations, content is available for destinations. And actually, we have requests where destinations see the opportunity to activate their strategies through the platform, because in order to succeed with their strategies, they need to activate their local travel trade local industry. So this is also in the works, and we hope that will be really helpful to build these bridges really in an efficient way. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. See you all next time.
Yes, bye.